Have you ever met someone who wouldn't take no for an answer? That's what happened to Jillian, but things took a strange and unexpected turn. Jillian always went to this one cafe, and one day she bumped into a young man. His name was Charles. Charles came from a wealthy family and thought that no woman could ever say no to him. He asked Jillian to have coffee with him, and she did. They had a friendly conversation for a while, but by the time the cafe was about to close, Charles gently grabbed Jillian by the hand and asked her out. She said, "I'm sorry, you're just not my type," and left. This made Charles furious. From then on, he'd come to the same cafe every single day to hope that Jillian was there. It got to the point where Jillian would look through the window and see Charles waiting for her. She'd feel uncomfortable and leave. It just seemed like he wouldn't take no for an answer. But things were not so simple. One day, it was the final straw. Charles brought flowers to the cafe and waited for Jillian. When she didn't show up, Charles took the flowers, threw them on the ground, and stomped on them. He yelled, "That's it, I'm gonna make you my girlfriend if it's the last thing I do." The next day, he looked up Jillian's address in the phone book and went to her house. But he could never have expected what he would find there. Follow for part 2. Have you ever met someone who wouldn't take no for an answer? Charles became obsessed with Jillian after she blew him off at the cafe. Charles was the type of man who couldn't accept that anyone might reject him, so he found Jillian's address from the phone book and went to her house. He knocked on the door many times until he heard Jillian's voice say, "Charles, what the heck are you doing?" Charles replied, "I don't get why you wouldn't go out with me. We had such a great conversation in the cafe." Jillian replied, "I already told you, you're just not my type. But if you really want to know what my type is, I can show you." Then she opened the door. Charles stepped in. "You see that door at the end of the hallway? Go in there and you'll see the type of man I like." Charles eagerly went in and saw a staircase leading down to the basement. What happened next would shock anyone. When he got to the bottom of the stairs, he smelled a horrible rotting smell. Then he saw that he was surrounded by 12 or 13 bodies nailed to the wall. All of them were headless. On the table against the wall, their heads were arranged in a row. Suddenly, Charles felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned around and saw Jillian with an axe. Jillian swung the axe, and as Charles's head flew across the room, Jillian picked it up, looked it dead in the eye, and said, "Now you're my type."
Have you guys ever heard of the sad origins of the yellow smiley face? Now, this is obviously a popular symbol worldwide, and the oldest artifact found with the smiley face on it was a picture dating to 1700 BC. But the classic form of a smiley face was invented in 1963. There was this insurance company back in the 60s that hired a graphic designer. They wanted him to create an image that would make their workplace seem more cheery. So the man literally sat down and drew a simple smiley face on a yellow background. Now, the company loved the design and ended up only paying him $45 for it. This designer did not know that it was about to become a worldwide symbol. The image quickly gained popularity, and over time, many legal battles ensued over who truly claimed ownership over this legendary design. At one time, even Walmart got involved, and it's so sad because the man who actually made this smiley face was never truly credited. His name was Harvey Ross Ball, and he was only paid $45.
This is why you should always pay attention to details. A woman was brushing her hair when she found a little bump at the back of her head, so she called her husband to have him check it out for her. He said it looks like a button. It's small, round, hairless, and flat at the top. He joked around it with her, asking, "What do you think would happen if I pressed it?" Then he did, and the woman instantly leaned up and gave him a kiss. Then the husband kept pressing it as a joke, but something went wrong. It seemed like he pressed it all too many times, and a cool numbness spread down the woman's neck, around her arms and her legs. Her eyes automatically shut and her vision went black. A while later, the woman woke up and learned that she had fainted. The husband kept apologizing with tears in his eyes as if it was all his fault. Eventually, they both went about their lives and tried to forget about this incident, but the woman just couldn't, because afterwards, she came across a photo of her family in the living room. It was a photo of her and her husband's wedding propped up on a ceramic urn. She looked closer at the photo of her own face. She's smiling as if she's the happiest girl in the world, but there's a small scar under her left eyebrow, a scar that she now didn't have. Do you style your hair the same way every day? Well, there's an urban legend about a woman who always wore her hair in a bun, but for her, this habit would lead to something terrifying. This woman loved wearing her hair in a bun, but she might have taken it a bit too far. She didn't want to style her hair differently or even take out her bun to clean her hair. Whenever she took a shower, she would just wear a shower cap to make sure the water didn't mess up her bun. At night, she would sleep with a towel around her hair so the bun didn't move. After a while, she had to put hairspray in it to mask the smell. Then her scalp started feeling itchy, so she would put more hairspray in it. Even when the itching got intense, she just applied more hairspray. But her husband finally found out about how bad the situation had gotten when he woke up one day and his wife was still asleep. He tried to wake her up, but she wouldn't move. She had died in the middle of the night. The husband called the police, fearing that something unusual might have happened. But when her body was examined, they finally took out her bun. Inside her hair, they found something terrifying. They found a huge spider had gotten into her hair, made a nest, and laid eggs. When the baby spiders hatched, they bit through her skull and ate her brain.
A fun fact, you guys know that there's this thing called revenge bedtime procrastination, where people will refuse to sleep because they don't have much control over their daytime life? So they will sleep very late at night, even if they're super tired, because they just don't want that free time to end at night and they don't want tomorrow to start.
Warning, this is why you should not touch an old house. A woman recently bought an old house in a very remote area. She wanted to renovate the home, and very quickly she began tearing down the kitchen and ripping all the old wallpaper off. She claimed the wallpaper was extremely satisfying to rip off, like scabs of a sunburn. Very quickly she noticed names and dates in places she was removing the wallpaper. One night she was curious and spent hours googling one of the names. She discovered they were missing people, and the dates they went missing matched what was written on the wall. She called the police, and when they arrived they said, "Yep, it's human. What you were removing from the walls was not wallpaper."
Did you know that there's actually a haunted Ronald McDonald bench in Mexico? This is actually one of the most bizarre stories that I've ever heard. The story goes that two young men had just left the nightclub and were very hungry and went looking for a late night snack. They both settled on having McDonald's, and once they had gotten their food, they both took a seat on the Ronald McDonald bench outside of the restaurant. It was a strange bench because it had a statue of Ronald McDonald sitting in the middle with his arms spread out. His face almost had this crazed expression, and one of the men eventually laid down on Ronald's lap and said, "I'm tired." Just then, Ronald McDonald's head turned and looked down at him and said,
"I'm tired too."
The legend says they were so shocked by hearing this that one of them died instantly and the other is still in a coma to this day. Apparently, the security cameras outside the restaurant recorded everything. So it is rumored that McDonald's paid a huge amount of money to cover it up, because they didn't want the public to find out they had an actual really dangerous haunted McDonald's statue.
These are what your dreams say about you and your life. If you ever dream that you're falling, it means that something in your life isn't going well. It suggests that you may need to rethink a choice in your life or consider a new direction in some area of your life. If you ever have a dream that you're being chased by something or someone, it suggests that you're trying to avoid something daily in your life. It also suggests that you're trying to forget something that makes you feel angry, sad, or any other type of emotion. If you've ever had a dream about losing your teeth, it indicates you're concerned about your ability to communicate or doing something embarrassing in public.
These are pretty cool, but it's the plot twist at the end that's gonna get you. You wake up stranded on a deserted island, and now you need to go find drinkable water. So where are some places we can find that? You look around the island and you notice a whole bunch of coconut trees, and you think, well, people drink coconut water, I'll just drink that until I get rescued. Except if you only drink coconut water and don't supplement it with another water source, you will develop wicked diarrhea and will die of dehydration. So you start looking for an alternative source of water. And you remember from that documentary about cannibals that it is safe to drink your own blood. So you cut your arm open, you start drinking your own blood, but what you failed to understand is only in small doses is that okay. Beyond a couple teaspoons, and you'll develop something called hemochromatosis, which results in your lungs filling with fluid, and you basically drown from the inside out.
This was one of the creepiest Barbie dolls that was ever sold in stores. This was called the Barbie Video Girl doll that came out in 2010. She came with a real working camera disguised as her necklace, and a video was projected onto her back. The issue here is that it could record up to 30 minutes of video, and even the FBI became worried about what this children's toy could be used for. People were concerned that this video Barbie was always watching. Then there was another doll called Hello Barbie, and she, on the other hand, was always listening and was happy to record your conversations and send that data via Wi-Fi to Mattel. So these two Barbies really freaked out parents because it really seemed like an invasion of their privacy.
Crazy part is, most people believe that these three things will actually save your life. They don't. Let's pretend you get stuck in a blizzard on a mountain, and you need to stay warm. So how are you going to do that? You remember hearing somewhere that alcohol is supposed to keep you warm. So you whip out your flask, you take a swig, and sure enough, you feel warm already. You feel flush in the face. But it's an illusion, because what happens is alcohol, it increases blood flow to the skin and away from your core. So it plummets your core temperature, increasing the odds that you'll get hypothermia and die. So you stop drinking booze and you head off for a cave you see in the distance. Once you get inside the cave, you remember that you know how to make a fire. And so you do. Except the problem with fires inside of caves is it starts to expand the rock above you, causing it to crack and eventually caving in on you. So you narrowly escape the cave-in, only to hear something in the background. A grizzly bear was in the cave with you, and now it's charging out to avoid the cave-in. But you remember, humans can outrun bears, and you start taking off thinking, dumb bear, and it just catches you.
This was a banned episode of Peppa Pig. This episode was called Mr. Skinny Legs and it came out in 2004. And depending on where you live, it was taken off the air immediately. This episode was supposed to teach its young viewers that while spiders may look scary, they can't really hurt you. At the beginning, Peppa is afraid of the spider, but by the end of the episode, she befriends the spider and invites him as a guest to her tea party. Now, I think the moral of this story is pretty great, but apparently people in Australia did not agree. Australia is home to some of the most venomous spiders in the world, like the redback spider, whose bites are intensely painful and have historically been linked with deaths. So this episode was unfortunately banned in Australia because they did not want kids trying to befriend spiders. People used to cover their mirrors after someone died. Back in the Victorian era, after someone died, they would immediately go to their house and cover their mirrors with black cloths. This is because they believed that if they walked past the mirror and saw their deceased loved one looking back at them, it meant they would die next. They also thought the spirit would be forever trapped inside the mirror and would never be able to find peace. There were also just a lot of superstitions around mirrors back in that time. People thought that spirits could come through them. People thought mirrors brought bad luck. People thought that if you looked at yourself in the mirror, you would find the secret truth about yourself. But yeah, there are a lot of very creepy vintage photos of people covering their mirrors with black blankets or cloths. Did you hear about the tragic accident that happened on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride? Because of this accident, there's apparently a real ghost that lives inside this ride. The ghost is said to be a construction worker named George. But during the construction of this ride, George was unfortunately crushed by a large piece of the set that killed him instantly. So now it's said that his spirit lingers there, and staff members have to say good morning to him when they arrive to work and farewell when they leave. If they don't, he'll make life tough for them by causing the Pirates of the Caribbean ride to malfunction and break down throughout the day. It's said that he especially likes to haunt any females that go on this ride. There's been complaints of their hair being pulled or being poked on the back, but the saddest thing is that shortly after the theme park opened, a sad-looking older woman would periodically visit the attraction and ask to ride alone. Cast members then reported seeing her speak to nobody and sobbing into her ride boat. And then apparently it was revealed to be George's heartbroken mother, which is horrible.